Yeah.
Like many Canadians, affordable housing is an issue for Nicole Farrow.
I do think we need some stability in the property market. I mean, everybody is concerned about what's going to happen if interest rates go up in the next 5 years.
Affordability has become such a problem, two major parties dropped plans to tackle it in the first week of the campaign.
We have a housing crisis in Canada. We will implement our plan to kickstart the building of 1 million homes in the next 3 years.
Conservatives say they'll reach that goal in part by selling off and transforming unused federal real estate and by focusing on building homes close to transit.
Sometimes in the past, this hasn't been at the center of the Conservative Party's platform the way that I think it needs to be for the sake of all cities in Canada.
The Conservatives' plan is not going to create homes that are within people's budgets. Our focus is very clearly on making sure people have homes in their budgets.
New Democrats are promising to create 500,000 affordable housing spaces in 10 years, while the Liberals haven't yet announced their plan, but have been criticized for not building promised affordable spaces fast enough.
Significant new investments in housing that I'm looking forward to speaking about in the coming weeks.
All three parties want to tackle foreign home buyers driving up prices. Conservatives want an outright ban for 2 years. The Liberals promised a 1% annual tax in the last budget, and the NDP would slap on a one-time 20% tax.
That one would make the most sense. 20%, I think, would require more consideration for, a $1.5 million house, for example.
Professor Paul Kershaw is calling for policy changes that stop rising prices, potentially unpopular for voting homeowners who like their increased value.
That looks really great for me as a homeowner, but it is eroding the affordability for those who walk in my footsteps. We need parties to acknowledge it. And right now, none of the parties is being that brave.
Kershaw adds, since none of the platforms is costed, we won't really know which plan is most effective until we learn the devil in the details. Donna?
All right, Abigail.
After not even setting foot in Alberta for the 2019 election campaign, Jagmeet Singh strode into Edmonton, confident he can gain seats in this province. To do that, he waded into provincial jurisdiction, pledging to create a $250 million fund specifically to train and hire nurses, a move he says that would reverse years of healthcare cuts.
Those cuts at the federal level from Justin Trudeau and those cuts from Jason Kenney are making it so it's so difficult for these workers.
If you're keeping score at home, Singh mentioned United Conservative Premier Jason Kenney's name 7 times in his morning media availability, and federal Conservative leader Erin O'Toole just once.
Absolutely, we're going to point to Jason Kenney and his bad decisions that hurt people. We're going to point to Conservatives that can't be trusted with health care.
A prime example of how Singh is hoping to parlay his provincial party's popularity into federal seats.
If you were to look at polls now, the NDP provincially would sweep the province, but yet they have a problem federally. But Jagmeet Singh is more popular now than he was 2 years ago.
But it's not just a two-party race in Edmonton. The Liberals were shut out in 2019, but are looking to take back 2 seats in this city.
So it's not the NDP versus the Conservatives in Edmonton. It's the NDP versus the Liberals versus the Conservatives in Edmonton.
But not all provincial NDP support will flow to Singh. He and Rachel Notley have not always been on the same page, especially when it comes to pipelines or the oil and gas industry.
Her strategy has been to strike a balance between energy and the environment, whereas Jagmeet Singh is focused much more on opposing things like pipelines and specific projects.
It's a really delicate dance for Singh, so when he was asked about Notley's support, he chose to focus on the issues that they can agree on rather than the ones that they don't. Donna?
All right, Michael Couture in Edmonton, thank you.
Welcome to Fort Moody.
The Liberal leader's visit to this suburb east of Vancouver Wednesday followed a visit here Tuesday by the NDP leader.
I'm really excited to be here in Port Moody, Coquitlam.
There's a good reason Jagmeet Singh and Justin Trudeau were here in week 1 of this election campaign. This riding, the riding of Port Moody, Coquitlam, was the single closest race in the entire country in 2019. Conservative Nellie Shin won by just 153 votes over the second-place New Democrat. The Liberals finished third, about 1,100 votes back. This in a riding where more than 54,000 people voted. But Port Moody Coquitlam is just one of more than a dozen ridings here in BC, that feature tight three-way races. For the Liberals, success in BC is critical for their path back to majority. And Trudeau is banking on his personal connection to the province to win these tight races.
I always talk about my BC roots. Well, they are particularly poignant right here because I have my two aunts, two of my aunts, Betsy and Heather.
But polls show many voters are looking favorably on Singh's NDP, and Erin O'Toole's Conservatives must defend what they have here if they have any hope of forming government.
BC is a tough place to call. You could plausibly come up with any scenario that sees any of the three main parties capturing the most seats at the end of this election.
But which party will separate itself from the pack and how? Well, candidates on the ground here say that the winning party has to make a compelling case on two issues key to BC voters. First, fighting climate change, and second, finding a way to make housing more affordable for middle-class voters. Donna?
All right, David Akin in beautiful Victoria, BC. Thanks.